white woman is the devil. Notice we did not say is a devil. Notice we did not say is devilish. We said the white woman is the devil. And in this video, we're going to be expounding upon how the white woman shows up as the devil historically, mentally, socially, sexually. That's what this video is going to be embodying. So thank you all for joining us, and we are excited to bring this information to you today.
Yes. So as always, we want to begin this video with disclaimers, because the disclaimer, it kind of filters out, the people who should be there and the people who shouldn't.
Right.
We want to make sure that this conversation is mature in the sense that we're getting to a higher level of knowledge.
Right.
So first, this video is the condemnation of white women in particular, and the white race generally.
Right.
And we're going to be talking about, among many other things, the history of the devil, the current form of the devil, how the devil relates to others, interpersonally, socially, sexually, and in nature, the repercussions of relationships with the devil, and finally, we're going to close out with the call to action. And lastly, we are identifying and condemning the holder of the gun, and not just the gun itself. Meaning we're looking at this holistically, meaning it's not enough to just condemn the white man. We have to say, where did the white man come from? In whose womb did the white man gestate?
Right.
And that's where we're going to be directing our anger and our criticism in this video.
Right, and it's really important to do that because it's very easy to ignore, the real devil, the real culprit. And that's in this video, we're addressing that. We're also, this video is not for the graduates of It Ain't That Deep University. We do not operate in that space. Everything that we do as a people is guided by something else, by our ancestors. And this is the information that they have allowed us to bring you today. And that leads us into our next point, is that these points are inspired by ancestral offering, and we are simply conveying the substance of that offering. So this is something that is bigger than us, and we feel that we're really the only people that can address this in the way that it needs to be addressed.
Right.
And then lastly, we can do the myths.
Right. So we want to kind of set the stage for this discussion by mentioning a quote from our great scholar, Mama Marimba Ani. And in her book, Let the Circle Be Unbroken, she defines myth. And her definition of myth is highly relevant to how we're going to conduct this discussion. And she writes, some will say that the ideas expressed herein constitute mythology, but then we must understand the political function of myth. A myth is not a lie. Rather, it is the highest statement of truth. It is a truth which mobilizes and unifies, a truth which states the ideals of a people. All ideologies are founded on myth.
Okay.
So in this video, we're getting at the truth, the asili of who white people truly are. And we can't understand that in a very comprehensive way without decoding the mythology of whites.
Right. And we've been taught for a long time that mythology, it's just some random stories. No. What our ancestors and what Marimba Ani is saying is the myths of a people, or who they really are, right? We have myths. And other cultures have myths, but that is the essence of those people in those myths. And what we've done is we've just decoded what those myths are, and now we're conveying them to you. And when you look at the myths of white women and white men, you get at the essence of who they really are and who they hide themselves to be.
Yes. So our first point is, naturally, who is the devil? Okay, this is a term we hear all the time, but it has to be defined. We don't define it, we're just speaking in confusion.
We're just right.
Okay, so the devil, our argument is the devil's actual name, the first name of the devil is Lilith. Okay, that's Lilith, Lilith. The devil is Lilith. Who is Lilith? Lilith is a she-demon from Sumerian mythology, dated around 2000 BCE, and is recognized as the first wife of Adam. And she's also called the screeching owl or the night monster. Okay, so from the get, we have to identify Lilith isn't a man, it isn't a male figure, but it's a white woman figure. And the name of that white woman figure is Lilith in Sumerian mythology.
So you don't even have to use the word devil. You can just say Lilith, and that means devil. And it's a white woman.
Yes. So what is Lilith's function? So the function of Lilith, if you read the mythology, is she specializes in stealing the semen or the seed from the man, and then upon stealing his seed, she kills the man. She also specializes in killing newborn babies. Okay, and she was the enemy of all wives and mothers. So in this Lilith personality, this Lilith prototype, what you have is the enemy of everything that's African.
Yep,
you have the enemy of the wife, you have the enemy of the mother, you have the enemy of the children,
child,
and the enemy of the man, who is the protector of the village. So when we're talking about this Lilith personality, this is literally everything that's anti-African, everything that spells the destruction of African civilizations. Okay. Next, we want to talk about how is Lilith distinct from the African woman. She's distinct from the African woman, firstly, because she has no breast milk or feminine vitality.
She doesn't have any breast milk or femininity. So what we're going to see the longer we go on, because we have a lot of information to give you today. So actually, if you have a notebook or some paper, please write this information down, because it's a lot to take in, and it's a lot that you probably have not heard before. But it's important that you take this information and actually can apply it to your life. Otherwise, it's no point. But the white woman is the devil embodiment, right? She embodies that essence. And what you're going to see throughout is that she has no femininity, and that's why she acts the way she does, right? So let's go ahead and go further.
Okay, so some adjectives that we can use to describe Lilith, and again, this is just painting a picture for our listeners so that they can put a face to this character. Manipulative, seductive, deceptive, sensual, barren, carnal, cruel, death-centered. These are all words that you could use to describe Lilith. Notice all of these words, they're anti-life, meaning they're anti-procreative. When you have a Lilith energy, this means destruction. This means desolation. This means emptiness. The lack of vitality. Okay, so all of these things are aspects of the Lilith personality. Next, this is why we call Lilith the prototype of white women, because Lilith birthed evil into the world, meaning all of the genocidal killers that we know throughout history, whether that's Adolf Hitler, Leopold, people like Jeffrey Dahmer, people like Napoleon, people like Rochambeau in Haiti. All of these men were reared within the white household, which was governed by the Lilith.
They came from a white womb.
They came from a white womb. So what we're doing, again, we're identifying the source and not just the effect. We're saying, what is the source? What is the biological, cultural source of this murderous energy that we see unfolding throughout history?
Right.
Okay. So other names that you'll see in literature to describe this Lilith character is you'll see them called femme fatales, man eaters,
vampires,
succubus. These are all synonyms for that Lilith. And a note, when they describe Lilith, even her physical form, they say she has long red hair, or sometimes she'll have long blonde hair. She has blue eyes. She has white cheeks with red rouge on her cheeks. So even when you read the mythology, it's always the descriptive of Lilith is always matches that of a white woman.
Right.
So again, that's another historical note we have to pay attention to, is that this is not just us pulling things out of our hat, but no, this is us following what's written in the textual record, and also what history tells us based on our observation. So when you combine those two things, you get a more deeper picture. You get a revelation, because that's one of our forms of knowledge. How do scriptures, how do ancient texts give us the revelation for us to act intelligently in the present? Okay. So next we're going to talk more about the history of Lilith. So do you want to talk about how Lilith embodies this evil in her infanticidal ways, in ways how she kills children, and specifically how the killing of children was a prominent feature of ancient Greco-Roman society.
So the white woman, because like I said earlier, she lacks that femininity. And then the story, let's talk about the story, because I feel like if we don't give the story of her, they may be kind of confused. So the story of Lilith is she was supposed to be created with Adam, right? And because she didn't want to be on the bottom in the sexual act, and she didn't want to submit essentially to the man, that God apparently cast her out. And then because of that, she was hostile and she was upset. And she also, part of that being cast out is she was barren. Meaning she wasn't able to carry children. And I say all the time, if you watch my videos, I always talk about how white women can't be mothers. Like they don't have the body mass, they don't have the womb.
nipples,
they don't have their
inverted.
nipples are inverted. So it's so many indicators that the Creator has given us to show that these women are not really women, right? But anyway, with Lilith, this was something that was cast on her, so she wasn't able to raise her children. So in return, she became hostile. She became a type of person who says, okay, because I can't do the things that the African woman can do, I'm going to, rape the earth or steal from the man. So she visits the man in his sleep, and she takes his semen from him while he sleeps. She haunts babies and kills babies. So these are all indicators that she's vengeful, that the Creator did not give her the capacity to be able to mother and nurture the way African non-white women are able to do. And so because of that, she has this homicidal urge to take life, whether that's the man's life, whether that's other women, whether that's children. It doesn't matter. Like, she just wants to cause chaos in the earth that the Creator made. And for a lot of the time, we've been taught that that's the white man. Like, the white man is so destructive, and he is. This is not trying to negate the fact that the white man is very destructive, but like he said earlier, he is the gun. The white woman is telling him how many guns to put in the gun,
how many bullets to put in the gun.
Right, how many bullets to put in the gun, how many times to shoot, where to aim. That's all coming from that psychological element that the white woman is giving to the white man. So he's just like the puppet.
Yes.
He's the puppet.
Yes.
And so in this video, we want to make sure that our people understand why we have this hostility that we have towards white people in general, but specifically to white women, because they are the real culprit behind a lot of the destruction and the evil that we see within the world. And they're very comfortable with hiding behind the fact that, oh, it's the white man. They'll let you say, yeah, the white man, he's so oppressive, he's so patriarchal, he's such a rapist. But you birthed him, though.
Yes.
He came from you, though. Which means you are also a rapist. You are also evil and vile and decrepit. You see? So we have to be able to make those connections, and as African people, we've always been holistic, like he said earlier. So this is just a holistic approach to that. So like I said, so she kills children because for her, and she also targets people who are in marriages. Remember, we read
wives
that?
and mothers. Yeah.
So people who are in relationships, marital relationships, she apparently attacks those children with even more force because she doesn't like complementarity. She doesn't know how to cooperate with her man because she's very masculine. And this is what Yurugu in the book, we don't have the book up here, do we? Right. But Yurugu, Marimba Ani's Yurugu, she talks about that incomplete half. Yurugu is always in search of that feminine essence, that feminine half. So what we want to bring to us and to you all in this video is that the white woman is masculine. She doesn't know how to be feminine, and this is why she's always competing with the man. She doesn't know how to compliment the man, and you see that in this story with Lilith, with her relationship with Adam. She didn't want to submit to him because she's masculine. Because if I can submit, and we can submit to each other because we're complimenting each other. You see, I'm that femininity, he's that masculinity. We work together. But if I'm masculine and he's masculine, now it's a fight. And this is why white women have historically always been at odds with their men, because they're masculine. And she uses this femme fatale, this fake femininity, this dark femininity, to try to pretend that she is feminine, but she's not. The only feminine woman on the planet are melanated women. The white woman is masculine.
And we should add, this is the true meaning of the phrase "far from grace" or "far from heaven."
Yeah.
The conventional storyline we have is that Satan was a male, a rebel who wanted to vie with the power of God.
Right.
And because he tried to challenge God's power, God cast him out of heaven. But really, when we take the Lilith story in mind, the far from grace is the fact that Lilith couldn't embody her femininity.
Yes.
Heaven is a metaphor for that feminine vitality, that feminine essence that is natural for African women, but that's inaccessible for Yoruba women. That's inaccessible to the white woman. So when Lilith was cast from the presence of Adam, she was cast from her femininity. And what you see in the historical development of white women is this fruitless search for feminine essence that they cannot find. And that's what, as African people, we have to understand. You cannot follow a group of women who lack femininity by nature because they were cast away from that heaven by our Creator.
And they've infected us with that same. Did we hit all these points?
Yes.
They affected us with that same lack of femininity, and we think that dressing up like Barbies is going to get us there. Meanwhile, that's setting you further away, because Barbie is a Lilith. Every white image that you see of white women, that is a Lilith, because that's their only power. They don't know how to do anything other than sexually arouse to extract the seed from the man and then use that as a weapon. Because we're going to also see that when Lilith, the white woman, when she engages in intercourse with white men, she's not doing it because she cares about him. She's not doing it because she wants to produce his seed. She's doing it so that she could subdue him and drain him of his masculine essence, his masculine power. And this is why white men have always been at odds with their women. It's because the women are weaponizing their sexuality to drain the men of their power. We don't do that as African women. When we lay down with our men, we give them power, and they give us power. We give each other power because we're complements. But the white woman, she doesn't want him to have power, because remember, she's masculine, so she's trying to compete. So she says, when I lay down with you, I'm supposed to build you up and give you power, but I don't want to do that because I want the power. So I'm going to drain you. I'm going to do sexually depraved things in bed with you so that you release your semen and you release your seed recklessly. This is why over-sexualization is a product of the devil or Lilith, because that's all she knows how to operate in, is that oversex.
Yes, and we must understand the relationship dynamic of the white woman, not just with the man, but with the village, with every entity she comes in contact with is parasitic. Meaning the parasite always what? It drains the host until the host dies. And then she migrates to another host. So we have to understand, in this parasitic relationship, you're never going to come out of that situation not at a deficit. And socially, you have to think of the prostitute. This is the kind of embodiment of that parasitic dynamic. Meaning the prostitute, she's having sex not to carry the seed of the John. No, she wants the money of the John. She wants the thing that the John could have used, the provisions that he could have used for his family. She wants the John to give it to her. So again, and remember, the prostitute herself is also a key figure, a pillar of family life, as the Western sexuality puts it. She's a pillar of family life within the European society. So within the Lilith, when you update it socially, what you see is the prostitute, meaning this entity, this woman, this white woman, who is constantly parasitically leashing off of all of the vital sources of the community, but not to pour back into the community, but to use it to enhance her own power.
And this is in their own text. Everything that we're bringing to you today, a lot of this is from them directly talking about Lilith, talking about her characteristics, her prototype, how she relates to men, how she relates to her children. So this is not something that we are just creating. We're using our own African knowledge and the wisdom that we have from our elders, coupled with what they're also saying, and this is how we're able to bring this to you today.
Right. So the next point we want to go to is this outer appearance of white women, how it reflects their inner essence. Are they a seedly? Because remember, from the African point of view, because we're holistic, we always begin our definitions on the level of spirit. And then what you see physically, this is just an external shadow, if you will, of the internal. Meaning whatever happened internally, it's going to be reflected externally. And this is also true of white women. So one of the things that we can highlight about white women that is an external reflection of their inner essence is the fact that they age rapidly. And we know of this, the whole phrase, black don't crack. But if we look at it deeper on a celic level, we see that this recessive trait, because that's what this is, this recessive trait of white women, where they age rapidly or they bruise easily. This is a outer reflection of their inner essence, and that inner essence is that they're death-centered, that the white woman is always pregnant with death, that she's always pregnant with a white man who is the purveyor of death. You see, so whether she's pregnant or barren, she's always has death inside of her. So everywhere the white woman goes, there's an atmosphere, a negative aura of death. Like you're walking into a cemetery. That's what it feels like when you're awakened in your African mind to be in the presence of white women. So that's the first thing we have to recognize. The rapid aging of the white woman is an outward expression
of the
of her
internal.
inner essence. And vice versa, the graceful aging of the African woman is a reflection of her inner vitality. Meaning, because the African woman has a functioning pineal gland, because she has mitochondrial DNA that's not linked to a mutation, she is able to bear children in full health, and the children don't become purveyors of death. They don't develop nuclear weapons. They don't develop institutions like slavery. They don't develop, torture devices and machine guns and all these types of monstrous creations that is making the world harder to live in. So this is another aspect that we have to define when we're comparing the white woman, the Lilith, to the African woman.
Right, and this is why it's important that we can't limit ourselves to just calling white women Karens, right? Because that's not deep enough. The Karen character functions to limit the depth of our critique of white women by confirming it in the Middle Ages. So what we're doing is we're confining the way we're criticizing white women to when they're in their 40s or whatever, the older Karen. And it's like, no, Karen was a young girl at one point. Karen was a teenager. Let's go look back and see how that looked, and then we can better understand why Karen is doing what she's doing today. And we should just stop using that term, because the devil's name is not Karen, it's just Lilith. Right.
So yeah, we sanitize who white women really are when we use these terms that can be used in comedic context. Meaning whenever we use a term for people, it has to have a kind of historical potency. Meaning it should be a reference to the people's assili. To when you say, okay, when you call this person a Lilith, you're saying she's demonic. You're saying she kills children. You're saying she kills men. You're saying that she kills mothers and wives. That's a more appropriate, I think, designation than Karen. Because again, Karen, this slides right off of their back, because when a white woman hears that, she says, you don't know who I really am.
You still don't know who I am.
You don't know who I am. You may not like me, but you don't despise me to the point that you want me to disappear off the face of the earth. So that's the types of words we should be using. Next, we want to talk about how the absence of femininity in the white woman traps her in a state of perpetual girlhood. And this is something that Mama Jahi talks about at length in her videos, Girlhood versus Womanhood. And you want to expound on that?
Yeah, so in the videos that I make about girlhood versus womanhood, I talk heavily about how the black woman is stuck in this girl-like state, right? And a product of that is because we've been in the presence of white women. I talk about that a lot. And because the white woman, she's not a woman. We're saying woman just so you understand who we're talking about, but mentally, physically, genetically, the white woman can't be a woman because she doesn't have the mitochondria DNA really to be able to rear healthy whole children that don't grow up to be, like you said, murderers and rapists and all of these things, right? So because the white woman, she lacks that femininity, she's always going to be in the girlhood. She's always going to be in that masculine space. And femininity, that movement, is just a way of competing socially. And we'll talk about that later, because we're going to talk about how the white woman relates in the social space, in the sexual space, in nature, and in relationships in a second. But overall, what we're trying to communicate is the white woman doesn't know how to be a woman. Because being a woman, or being a mother and a wife, you're a fountain. You're pouring in. But the white woman, you're going to see later, she's a narcissist.
She's a drain.
She's a drain. She's a drain on our mental, on our physical, on our emotions. She's always plotting. She's always, and this is the thing. If you're a black woman, you've felt this energy before. Like, let's be honest, as black women, we've all felt that energy of the white woman that we just couldn't really pinpoint. We were just like, I don't know, it's just something. It's just something that I feel, but I'm pushing past it because she seems so nice, or she seems so welcoming, or she's always around. So, I guess I'm gonna push through this. But spiritually, in our gut, we know something just ain't right. And this is that something. This is what we're trying to bring to you. We have been fed a lie that the devil is the white man, or the devil is not the white woman. Some genderless entity. Yeah. No, the devil has a gender. The devil has a persona. And what we're saying is the spirit, that depraved spirit, fits perfectly into the white woman.
And the white woman's psychology just like the devil, is based on what? False victimhood. Meaning, if you look at the scriptures, the devil always appears as what? A lamb, as some innocent creature that needs help, that needs assistance. So this damsel,
look, help me,
this damsel in distress idea, this is all the machinations of the devil. And the African psychology is based on proactive contribution, meaning she's thinking, what can I do to make myself a bigger asset to my community? Yes, I may need help, but that's not how I define myself. I define myself based on my ability to pour into the children, to rear those children, to be of assistance to other mothers, meaning being a sister,
Extended
to being
motherhood.
a wife. These are all ways in which the African woman defines herself within the village. Meanwhile, the white woman, because she has this parasitic nature to her, she's always going to claim victimhood in order for you to what? To relinquish any type of accountability, to relinquish any type of defense against her assault.
And it works
and the
every
assault
time.
is always in the form of, I'm going to steal your vitality, and then I'm going to harvest it for my own ends. Okay?
She's, like you said, she's a drain. She's a drain on our energy. And the African woman, we are always looking to pour into, naturally at least.
Right. So next we're going to talk about the relationships, white woman's relationships, and how they reveal her devilish essence. Okay. What is it about her relationships? When you look at them, you say, okay, all of these characteristics match up perfectly with the description of the devil as we understand it.
Right.
So the first thing I think we have to acknowledge is that white women are the mothers of narcissism. Okay. That means every relationship they have, psychologically, it falls under some category of narcissism. And narcissism is essentially imbalance. It means I'm going to take from you,
and I'm
not going to reciprocate.
Give you anything.
I'm not going to give you anything in return. It's literally the rejection of my aunt. Okay,
and the opposite.
And this narcissistic personality disorder, remember, this is birthed from an environment of barrenness, an environment of infertility, an environment where you cannot breastfeed. You see, so when you're operating from that recessive point, when you're operating from a point saying, I cannot nourish the life around me, what does that breed? First, it's a scarcity mindset. But scarcity breeds what? Selfishness. Things are always in short supply. So the only way you can have a person who's not narcissistic is they have to be in an environment of abundance, like the African continent. But if they're in an environment that's desolate, they're going to be narcissistic, and that narcissism originates with the mother, because this is just a law of nature. Everything about a people originates with the mother.
Right.
Culturally, when you want to define the culture of a people, you have to look at the mothers. And we're saying when you look at the culture of whites, you see this streak of narcissism, but that narcissism originated with the white woman.
And she passes it down
to the white
child.
And that's why the white men are narcissistic, because their white mothers taught them to be narcissists. They didn't learn it from a book. They didn't learn it because it fell out of the sky. They didn't learn it through like reading astrology. They learned it because their mothers taught them. They observed their mothers, and then they mimic what their mothers did.
And that's just natural. We do that with our children. Our children learn how to be and do things by watching us.
Yes. Because the father isn't in the home.
No.
He isn't in the white home.
No.
We know this. Black men, African men spend more time with our children than any other demographic of men.
Right.
So the white man isn't in the home. So where is the white child learning this narcissism? From his white mama.
Right.
Okay.
And the root of narcissism, when you're passing it to your children, is neglect.
Yes.
And this is why I always talk about how neglectful white women are to their children. They have to be. That's the only way you can get such a destitute race of people, is if the mothers are neglectful. So the white mothers neglect their children, and then they produce men who build nuclear weapons. Oppenheimers.
Barbie is the mother of Oppenheimer. Okay? So
notice how they came out at the same time too. They trying to communicate something to you.
All right, so next. So this is the first relationship we want to decode, the relationship between the white woman and the white man. So the relationship between the white woman and the white man is ritualized fighting. And this isn't our term. This is a term from another Yorugu by the name of Michael Bradley. And he wrote a book called Iceman Inheritance. And ritualized fighting is also common in the animal world. This is when two creatures, the male and the female, will fight each other almost to the death. But then they'll realize that the imperative of genetic survival conflicts with this urge to fight each other. So what'll happen then is they'll cease the fighting, then they'll combine their vicious energies and direct it outward to another outer enemy to the species.
Right.
So with the white race, what you see is the white man and white woman, they fight each other first. Then they realize we have to genetically survive. And we
Right.
have an enemy who also exists on Earth called Africans. So let's stop fighting each other and let's redirect our wrath to
Towards
destroy
them.
African people.
Yep, and we're going to give in more detail how that looks like.
So this is Partners in Crime. This is Bonnie and Clyde. This is Barbie and Oppenheimer. This is anytime you see the white man and woman working together, it's on behalf of their genetic survival and in favor of our genetic annihilation.
Absolutely. And if you haven't seen the movie Gone Girl,
Yeah.
Gone Girl is a great example of what we're talking about, how the white man and the white woman ritualize fight each other. If you've seen that movie, that's a perfect example. And when we watch movies, we don't watch them to be entertained. We watch them to analyze and to understand who we're, white people even better. And that's the perfect movie to get a glimpse of how the white woman operates in her relationships.
So what is the nature of this ritualized fighting? When it turns into a partnership, what does the white woman get out of the partnership and what does the white man get out of the partnership? So the white woman needs the white man's body mass, meaning she needs his muscle. She needs his nuclear weapons, his military strength. That's what the white woman, his viciousness. That's what the white woman needs from the white man.
Right.
And the white man, what she needs from the white woman is her psychological viciousness, meaning her willingness to kill, her willingness to do whatever she needs to do to annihilate her enemies. Meaning, if she has to kill African children, she's going to tell the white man to do so.
To do it,
You see, and then he takes his muscle, he takes his military technology and acts on her behalf. Okay, so you see how they work as a team when necessary.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one thing we have to understand.
Yes.
The white woman plus the white man equals ritualized fighting, are partners in crime.
Partners in crime.
Okay, and
we can't ignore her role.
Yeah. So that's what we meant from the beginning. We have to analyze the holder of the gun and not just the gun itself.
Exactly.
Meaning not just the nuclear weapon, but who birthed this man who created the nuclear weapon.
That's all this is. That's all
Who
this
is this man who's exploding the nuclear weapon? Who is he going home to and
Who is
laying
his
down
wife?
with that night?
Who is his
Because
wife?
that's the person who is his inspiration.
Yes.
Okay? So next, the white man is a scapegoat for the white woman because he needs his mother. Meaning feminism. Anytime you see the white woman putting forth this line that the white man and patriarchy, that's the problem. What she's doing is she's trying to deflect attention away from herself. Again, playing the victim. And why does the white man play along? Because he knows if he condemns his white mother, that's the genetic infant.
That's it. He can't do it.
See, so the white woman, she understands that she's in a position where she can put the white man forward as the main enemy of the world. Meanwhile, she's orchestrating all of the violence and all of the terror that we see. So understand, this is a game that they're playing with us, and until we understand they're a seed, we're always going to fall for it.
Right. And the white man, this is just in general. Every species wants the approval of their mother, and this is why we always talk about the mother being the cultural administrator, because the children always want the approval of the mother, and that's essentially what's happening with the white man and the white woman. The white man wants his white mother to approve of him, and if she's a psychopath, if she's a murderer of children, if she's sexually depraved, then they are going to have to do things to honor her, right? And the only way you're going to get her approval is by doing those things. But the catch is, she's a narcissist, so you can't get a narcissist approval, meaning you literally have to destroy the world and her in order to get her approval, and then she still will probably withhold it from you because she's a narcissist. So white men, it's like, the more we did this research and the more we were getting these offerings, this revelation that we were getting, we were like, dang, like we kind of feel bad for the white man for a second, not really, but it's like he's literally indebted to somebody who hates him. The white woman doesn't know how to love her children. We told you earlier, she wants to kill children. So then how is she then going to love a husband and her children? She wants them dead. She wants to consume them. She wants to suck them dry. So it's like white people are indebted to an entity, the white woman, who is never going to give them the approval that they desire.
Yes, and it's two things we want to point out, and one is this epidemic of rape, of white men raping white women. We have to understand that's also an extension of the ritualized fighting. Meaning the white man, he's raping the white woman because he's saying, mother, you neglected me. Mother, you didn't breastfeed me. Mother, you didn't raise me the same way the African women raised their children. You see? And this is why in a lot of white societies, it's a common theme amongst white men. They say, you're not a man until you have sex with a black woman. Why do they say you're not a man until you have sex with a black woman? Because even white men understand the only women on earth are African women. They know that what they call women are really masculine in nature, meaning you have to have a feminine vitality in order to call yourself a woman. And they know because they've grown up in the same historical process as the white women.
They're not women.
And they've observed their mothers, and they say our mothers are neglectful, our mothers are narcissists. So this is fueling a rage in white men to rape their women. But this is not true of African people.
This doesn't apply to us.
Next, we want to point out transgenderism, because this is something that is very contemporary and very much in the headlines. Transgenderism is also a form of ritualized fighting. White women are trying to embody their masculine essence to make white men irrelevant. Meaning, all these white women who are getting mastectomies, these white women who are getting testosterone injections.
Competition.
This is competition. This is their way of saying, no, we don't want to be the feminine in this equation. We want to be the masculine.
And what's
Lilith energy.
Lilith energy.
Lilith energy.
And what's happening is the technology is now catching up with their asili, because they've been on this, right? They've been on this. Like we said, the white woman has always been masculine, but she didn't have the technology that they have today to be able to actually change their gender or remove their breasts. You see, so now that the technology has caught up with the white race, with white women and men, now they can actually communicate what they've always been doing behind closed doors. They've been doing this. They've been doing it, and that's what we need to understand, is this is not new. This is not something new. This is historically. They have it written in their own literature.
Yes.
They communicate this. It's not hidden information. It's very widely known.
Yes.
And the problem is, we as black people, because we're under such oppression, we're under such mind control, essentially, we don't have the time and energy to even look into this, right? We don't have it. We don't have the energy. We like, what does that have to do with me today, though? But what we're saying is it has everything to do with you, because you're in the presence of these people, and this energy, this Lilith energy, this satanic, depraved energy is rubbing off on you by being in proximity to these women.
Yes, and we must understand on this point of transgenderism, a people's technology is always an expression of their culture. Right. Technology is not culturally neutral. Meaning, so if we're looking at technology today and people are using it to get sex reassignment surgery, what is this saying about white culture in their relationship to gender, in their relationship to femininity and masculinity? What it's telling you is that they don't have a feminine essence.
They don't have it.
Because cultures that have a established, intact feminine essence, they don't mess with their gender dynamics. Right. Because if you have a feminine essence, that's all you need for genetic survival. The man plants the seed, but the woman, she gestates and brings that seed to life. So what you're seeing in white technology is what? The absence of feminine vitality. Yes. And they're expressing this through the sex changes, they're expressing this through ritualized fighting. Okay, our next point is, so we've defined the relationship between the white woman and the white man. We also want to describe what is the nature of the relationship between the white woman and the white woman.
So her sister.
Supposed to be her sister.
Right.
The relationship between two white women is one of lesbianism. What does this mean? The white woman, she wants the other white woman to express her sexual identity without giving to the village, without creating life. Meaning, it's mutual masturbation. This is what the white woman wants with another white woman. She does not want to bring more children in the world, because if you're a narcissist, if you're a psychopath, the children are what? Prey. So they say, okay, we don't want to bring more children in the world. So how do we actualize our sexual energy without the liability of having to raise a child, without the liability of having to be wives? And notice how this differs from the African conception. The African conception is you're an extended mother, meaning you're helping your sister raise her child. This extended family model is foreign to white societies. And because of the foreignness of the extended family model, for white women, they only know how to relate to each other as lesbians. Even if it's not sexual, it's still non-reproductive. Any non-reproductive relationship between women is a lesbian dynamic. And that's the dynamic that white women thrive on. Okay?
They need their sisters, they need other white women to invest in their sexual lower self so that they can't pour into anybody. Because if you're down here, you're always thinking about sex and masturbating or whatever. You can't pour into anybody, but that's what they want. They want to create more Liliths, more Lilith energy that can't give to anybody else, that only is a taker. That's a succubus that sucks you dry of your energy. And that is what white women, when they relate to each other, that's how they relate.
And just from the Lilith story, if people are interested in looking more into the story, Lilith actually had a lesbian partner who was named Nama. And Nama was known as the charmer. Okay, so her power was she would go to charm the men in ways that she even got angels to inseminate her. Okay, so this is again the nature of Lilith. Lilith is a lesbian by nature. Not only is she a neglectful mother, but she's also involved in lesbianism as a way of disowning her motherly responsibilities.
Yep, and we'll talk more about that further down.
Next.
So the white woman, how she relates to her daughter. She's a narcissistic mother, meaning she doesn't teach her daughter how to be a woman because she don't know how. She ain't a woman herself. So she withholds knowledge from her daughter. She withholds how to be a wife. She withholds how to be a sister to other women, how to be a mother and a nurturer. She's a narcissist and she's competing with her daughter. She's not trying to raise her up to be a good woman. She's trying to raise her up to be a Lilith.
So that the daughter doesn't overturn the order, the social order. Because remember, Lilith is invested in a particular social order. The social order of Lilith is what? Desolation. Meaning she wants to turn the forest into a desert. Meaning she wants to make sure that no responsibility is championed. That every woman who comes into her space is easy to manipulate. It's easy to control. Is very appetite driven. Okay, and this is again the social vision of the white woman. Okay, next, how does the white woman relate to the father, the white daughter to the father? And this is incestuous. Okay, meaning whenever you have a Lilith energy and the white father, the father is again the way you dominate the man is you take his seed. Okay, so there's always, whenever the Lilith interacts with any type of masculine energy, the point is to take the seed without insemination. Means you take the seed without adding to the village. And one of the ways that the white daughter-father, the white father dynamic plays out when the Lilith energy is in the room is there's an element of incest involved. Meaning there's never going to be the protective role of the father. The father isn't the protector. It's a kind of ritualized fighting again.
And this is why white men love younger girls because the Lilith woman, he can't compete with that. But he can compete with a teenager or a younger girl. So that's why white men feel more connected to young girls. Pedophilia is very normal for them because for them, they can't stand the women. So that's why they choose children. It's not just because they just like, well, I mean, they are nasty, but I'm saying a lot of this is just because how the mothers raise these men. The mothers raise these men and they're so repulsed by women that now they're like, well, I can't psychologically compete with the Lilith, but I can psychologically compete with a 7-year-old or a 15-year-old. And this is why they constantly choose pedophilia.
So you see the over-sexualization, it leads to sexual deviancy on every level. Meaning whether you're talking about between women or between adults and children. The over-sexualization, it creates a climate where every time there's a dynamic of male-female, sex becomes the way to assert your dominance. And that's what Lilith likes. She likes to create a society where sex is weaponized. Sex becomes a weapon for destruction instead of a tool for creation.
Because she's reckless and she lacks femininity. And she overcompensates with the sex to hide the fact. And this is why we always talk about these women in the music industry. These Megan Thee Stallions, these Cardi B's. These are masculine women. They lack femininity. Femininity is nowhere near them. But we're because they're women, we're like, no, she's feminine. No, she's not. She's masculine.
She has the organs of a woman without the spirit.
And that's what a white woman is. The organs of the woman without the spirit. When you don't know how to check your sexuality and use it in its proper context, in its proper place, you are not feminine. Femininity is that balance between that sexuality, knowing how to use it, and when it is used, it's more powerful. It's way more powerful than when you just reckless with it.
So next we want to talk about the white woman and the white child, and we've already talked about this, and this is murder, or sometimes today it'll be called postpartum psychosis. This is a lot of times you'll see a white woman to say, the devil is in my child, and they'll kill the child.
It's a whole bunch of stories about it.
A bunch of stories about it. Or a white woman in a hospital, as it was a white woman in England who killed the children in the NICU. Or you'll have it in Greco-Roman society where they would take the babies atop the hill in what they called exposure and leave the babies to be devoured by the beasts of the forest. So whether you're talking about ancient history or current day, news, what you find is an uninterrupted pattern of infanticide practiced by white women. And Lilith, by the way, was so much of a child killer that in ancient Jewish societies, they used to have amulets that they would put around the necks of the children, and inscribed on these amulets were the names of the 3 angels that God sent to drive Lilith away. So the idea was that once a baby is born, if we put this amulet on the baby, it will protect that baby. You'll put a shield of protection over the baby so that Lilith wouldn't descend and kill the baby. So this is not just a matter of, again, myth. This is culturally practiced behavior by white people responding to the fact that their ancestor, their oldest ancestor in the form of Lilith, was a child killer. And she passed that gene to all her descendants who are now walking the earth today as white women.
And this is why I always talk about not taking mother parenting wife advice from white women, because they are not mothers. They hate being mothers. They complain about it all the time. They whine and complain and mummer because they ain't built for it.
They have mom guilt.
They have mom guilt. They have postpartum depression. And they've just passed those diseases on to us because, like I said, we're in proximity to them. As black women, we're in proximity to white women too, so much that now we have taken on this Lilith energy, this energy of, I don't know how to take care of children, and I don't know how to do. Let me seek this advice. It's like it's innate. It's natural to us. We don't need to seek advice from them. So this is why I always tell my mothers when they reach out to me in my DMs or whatever, I always say, please steer clear from taking advice from white women. That's your first problem right there.
And part of steering clear of white women is, this is for my sisters, you all must disown the vocabulary of white women. Meaning there is no such thing as mom guilt in a culture that practices extended motherhood. Mom guilt, this is something you experience on an individual level. Is the entire village guilty?
No.
You know, you see, the entire village can't be guilty. So what you feel when you say I have mom guilt, what you're feeling is the byproduct of living in a savage society that hasn't supplied you with the support system that African mothers have as just a matter of course. Okay, so instead of saying I have mom guilt, say I'm suffering the effects of living in a savage society governed by Liliths, governed by savage white women. This is not mom guilt, because you will never hear an African woman talk about mom guilt, because motherhood is one of the most prestigious positions you could possibly occupy.
Period.
So there's no guilt attached to that position.
And the white woman, the Lilith, she's guilty because she ain't supposed to be giving birth. This ain't built for you. You're not built for this. You ain't supposed to be doing it, and that's why you guilty all the time. Stop giving birth.
So what is the white woman's relationship? Because we're talking about relationships.
So the white woman's relationship with adolescents. Men.
This is the cougar, okay? This is the white woman who doesn't want to age. This is the white woman who sees young men and says, okay, this is a man for me to steal his seed from. It manifests in shared psychosis as Stella got her groove back. You see?
I forgot about that.
That's how it crosses over into the African side. So meaning as African women get older, they become more intact in their elderhood. They say, I'm going to teach the younger women. I'm going to be a mother figure to the younger men. But the white woman says, no, I'm going to push down I'm going to compete with the younger woman, and I'm going to steal the seed of the younger man. You see, that's the cougar.
And it's easy to do because he's young and he's impressionable. So that's another thing. The white woman, the Lilith energy, she likes to prey on people who don't have the psychological capacity to resent her or to push back against her. Now just think about all of the stories that we hear about white women in these schools sleeping with these children, sleeping with these teenage boys. That's Lilith energy. This is
Take the seed.
Take the seed. Why are you sleeping with 17, 15, 13-year-old boys? Because for them, one of the articles, one of the PDFs that we read said that she will do anything sexually. There's nothing that she won't do.
She's the every man's quote dream.
Yes, and
sexually, but not spiritually.
Not spiritually. And even in school, when you're younger, you always hear about these white girls always having sex so early. And I used to be like, how are they doing this? Like we only in middle school and they in the bathrooms giving oral sex to middle school boys. But this is what they mothers was doing. So now it makes sense why the white girls are oversexed and having sex so soon. Lilith energy.
So now we're going to transition into our next topic, which is the sexuality of white women.
How the white women relate sexuality.
How the white woman relates to others sexually. So the first point we want to make is that over-sexualization is a weapon white women use to implant the society with the energy of Lilith. And the main vehicle through which they project this over-sexualization is seduction. This is their method of use, meaning seduction is a high priority for the white woman because seduction is a form of psychological warfare. Meaning it's a way how she disarms the man so that he cannot think clearly from his reasoning and intuitive mind. Meanwhile, the African woman, she has an aura of vitality. Meaning because she's pouring into those around her, she has a magnetism that draws the man in. Meanwhile, the white woman is more like she's catching prey. She sets a trap.
She got to trap these
And when
folks.
she's setting the trap, it's in the form of seduction.
Yes.
And this is all the image, the media we see. Put in not just white women, but put in Eurocentric looking black women like Beyonce and Rihanna and all these women with light skin and dog hair and light colored eyes. These are ways to seduce mentally, psychologically, to seduce men into saying the white woman is a woman when she's not a woman. She's a beast. She's a beast. Okay, so part of undermining the seductive power of white women is we have to start championing more African phenotypes.
Yes.
Meaning whenever we see a Eurocentric, whether it's a white woman or a black woman imitating a white woman, we have to say, okay, this is not in line with our ancestral memory. This is not an accurate reflection of our genetic heritage. This is in line with the seductive energy of Lilith. And we're going to reject that because this seductive energy is being used as a weapon to get the men to what? Release their seed recklessly where it's not being intentionally planted in ways that are conducive to our growth as a people.
And that's why the men are drained. They're drained because the women are just forcing them, doing anything sexual, masturbatory to get them to release their seed, but they're doing it as a weapon. They're weaponizing their sexuality. That's what sexual liberation is the weaponization of sex because you ain't feminine and you don't know how to be sexual. You don't know how to compliment your man. And that's why I said in the beginning, Lilith is because she was rejected. Now she's just a tyrant.
So this goes to our next point, which is non-consensual sex is the preferred sex of white women. Now this is, let's clarify. What do I mean by non-consensual? Do I mean that they like rape? No. Consent is based on the availability of information, meaning both people, they're not impaired in their judgment capacities. White women thrive in environments where the judgment capacity of the man is impaired. This means like bars, nightclubs, dimly lit rooms, having sex at night. You see all of these environments that undermine your ability to judge and make discernment. These are the environments in which the Lilith thrives because discernment and judgment is the enemy of the Lilith. Once a person is firm in their judgment and their discernment, she doesn't have the power. So the key is to psychologically entrap, not just men, because we're not just talking about men. This also applies to women. To psychologically entrap women to the point that their judgment capabilities are impaired. So then this is a form of furthering non-consensual sex. It's not the typical type of non-consent where she's holding you down physically, but she's holding you down mentally.
She overpowers you psychologically.
Okay, so we have to understand when we talk about non-consensual sex, Lilith originated this, and it originated again on that spiritual, psychological level.
Because what was she doing to the men?
She would have sex with them when they were asleep, which is rape, which is physical rape. And again, if y'all want another movie reference, look up High Life.
Yes.
Okay, this is a movie starring Robert Pattinson. Andre 3000 was in it too. Unfortunately had a small role. But in that movie, there's a white dog woman in the movie, and she has sex with a man while he sleeps and basically steals his semen. Okay? And this is a literal copy paste of what Lilith was doing.
Yes.
She would wait. That's what she did to Adam. When Adam was asleep, she came upon Adam and what stole his seed.
Wow.
That's rape. Okay.
Rapist.
So when we're talking about rape, think of Lilith. Okay. Lilith is a rapist. Okay?
And what do white women always be crying?
Rape. The people who originated rape in the ancient texts are now the most raped. Now they're screaming rape, but in the Sumerian text, it says that Lilith raped Adam.
This is why victimhood is where the white woman finds her peace. She uses the victimhood because she's actually committing more atrocities. More atrocities, but she's just the one, she's the mastermind behind the scenes doing it. So she can claim rape and claim victimhood. Imagine all the people, the black men that were killed because the white Lilith screamed rape.
The lynch mobs.
The lynch mobs that came on our men, that organized against our men because the white woman who was seducing our men. Because remember, the Lilith she's a succubus. She's a man eater. So she was seducing the black men and then calling rape and then having white men come and lynch them. If that's not the devil, then I don't know what is. The devil don't exist. If the white woman ain't the devil, then the devil don't exist.
Yes. So let's get just a little bit more into detail what we mean. So again, Lilith, she's over-sexualized, but she also uses sex as a weapon. What is the primary method that she uses? We would argue oral sex. And not just oral, you can also argue anal. But the point is sex that's non-reproductive, non-procreative sex, meaning I can steal your seed and I can guarantee that the seed is not going to be take root and lead to any life.
Right, because remember, she's a child killer. So the way that she doesn't actually have to kill the child once it has come out of the womb, she just makes sure that the man releases his seed recklessly. And that could be oral or anal.
And it makes women and men more infantile.
Yes.
How does it make women and men more infantile? Because this is an appetite-driven sexuality.
Lower self.
Remember, in the African system, when we talk about sex, this is something that you do after a rites of passage. Meaning after your heart has been raised to your head. If your heart has not been raised to your head, then you're going to what? You're going to engage in sex in the same way an animal does. And this is what Lilith represents. And this is why her preferred mate is the beast. The ideal relationship, because I described all these relationships, the ideal sexual relationship for the Lilith is the beast. Think Beauty and the Beast. That wasn't a children's story.
No,
they was telling you a cultural coding. They was telling you a cultural reality of white people. This is something Dr. Africa teaches us. He says, whenever you want to decode the culture of a people, look at their fairy tales. Beauty and the Beast is a fairy tale about the ideal relationship with the white woman. And why does the white woman prefer a relationship with the beast? Because the beast, unlike the human being, cannot resist. The beast, just like the white woman, is pure appetite. The beast, just like the white woman, exists in its lower self. So whenever you see white women with their dogs, whenever you see them going crazy over animals, this is again them expressing their asili that the ideal sexual relationship that they could ever have is with a dog, is with a cat, is with a bird, is with some type of creature that is incapable of resisting their manipulative energy. Okay, this is what we mean when we say we have to look at white people from an asilic perspective.
A holistic,
not just Karen. No, who is the ancestor of Karen?
Yes.
Who is Karen's ancestor?
Lilith.
Okay. Next, notice I said about the oral sex. This used to be a white thing. You know, there was a time in history where, and I can even remember, I was born in 1989, but even when I was a child, when I first introduced to this idea of oral sex, I mean, oh, that's white people. And there's even an idea that black men will often get with white women because white women would do things that black women wouldn't do. So how do you get from a culture where we used to openly say that this is something that white women do to something that this is everybody does?
Doing it now.
That's social engineering.
Yes.
That's Lilith propaganda having its moment of triumph, its moment in the sun.
Lilith energy infecting black women to now compete with them. Because
Yes.
this is all this is about. All these things that we're listing, black women are now suffering from these same things as well. Black women are now killing their children. Black women are now just doing all these sexually depraved things because we're trying to compete with the white woman, not realizing we don't got to compete because they not women. They competing because they masculine. We are feminine naturally, right? We're only become masculine when we're in the proximity to them and when we're taking advice and instruction and guidance from dog white women.
Yes. You become who you want to be.
Right.
Meaning, if you want to be the white woman, you become the white woman.
You become the white woman.
And it happens on a conscious and subconscious level.
Right. And we can see sexually that the black woman is now turning into the white woman by the way that she engages in sex.
And over-sexualization, if you haven't picked up by this point, is a form of invited suicide. And the succubus exploits this, okay? Meaning, invited suicide is not the same as direct suicide, meaning invited suicide is when you take actions that if you were to take it to its logical endpoint, it would lead to your demise. It would lead to your death. So what we're saying is this pattern of behavior, this pattern of white sexuality, of Western sexuality, that has penetrated and infected so much black women, so many black men as well.
Yeah.
This is a path to suicide as a race, path to suicide as a people. And until we can define our sexuality from an African point of view, we're going to continue to fall prey to these Liliths in our midst.
Right.
All right.
So now we're going to move on to how the white woman relates to society, how she relates socially. What does it look like for the white dog woman to relate to society? So feminism is the political face of the Lilith psychology. So because, like I said, we've been saying this throughout, because she's masculine in nature, she lacks that femininity. Because of that, she has to use these overcompensate with terms like femme fatale, which has the word femme in it, but it lacks femininity. Or she uses the word feminism, which has the word femme in it, but it lacks femininity, right? So she's always creating these terminology and these spaces where she gives the illusion of injecting you with femininity, but what she's really trying to do is turn you into a dyke, turn you into a lesbian, take your power from you by telling you that your lower self and that you can compete with the man. Why do I need to compete with the man? The man is my complement. I need my children come from him. Why am I going to compete with him?
Right.
But if the woman is masculine, this is like a man talking to you. These white women are men.
Yes.
And this is why they jumped on the train of transgenderism. They were like, how long did you say it would take for me to cut my breast off? How much did you say it cost?
Yes.
They ready. They ready because they was already masculine.
Yes, and think about how sacred the breasts are in the African tradition. Meaning the breasts are so sacred in the African tradition that amongst the Maasai, they have a word for God that translates as the nursing mother. You see? So you can't get a people who enshrine the breast so much that they give it as an attribute to their supreme God, then cut the breast off. That's a form of blasphemy.
That's crazy.
You see, that's a form of blasphemy.
That's how I give life. That's how I nurture. That's how I sustain.
So, but let's talk more about feminism, because I think this is evidence of what Marimba Ani calls the rhetorical ethic, meaning you say one thing and do
the
another.
opposite.
So feminism, in our understanding, had nothing to do with sexual liberation, because this is how they like to market it to us. Feminism was about freeing women from the cult of domesticity and the oppressive patriarchy.
White man is so oppressive.
And all this literature comes out. No, what was feminism about? Feminism was about white women emancipating themselves from the standards of femininity which originated on the African continent. Meaning, because the white woman historically has never been able to match the feminine vitality of the African woman, as history went on, she became more impatient with the demands of actually being a woman. So she said,
it's too hard.
I don't want to be a woman anymore.
I can't do it.
I want to be a man. But that sounds crazy.
It does.
If you have a bunch of women saying they want to be men, they're going to say these women are insane. So instead of saying we want to be men, they say, no, we want to be feminist. We're going to put a label that connotes womanhood. At the same time, we're running away from womanhood.
We're producing masculinity.
So feminism was about the emancipation from African femininity that they could under no circumstance embody because they're white women.
Yep.
Okay, because they don't have the biological or spiritual equipment to do so.
They can't do it. It's not there.
Here's another point I would like to point out. White women are naturally self-destructive. Okay, so meaning they smoke and drink in excess. Even when you look at the early stages of political feminism, what was the key symbol of feminine power? Smoking. They even called them freedom torches. White women would smoke, and it was a sign of feminine power to get a man to light your cigarette. African women would never smoke because African women are the cultural administrators, and why would they want to promote something as unhealthy as smoking to their village?
Why would I pollute my womb?
Why would they pollute their lungs and their womb by smoking? But again, for white women who are pregnant with death, their power expands the more self-destructive they become.
Yes.
So white women, they consider it a sign of liberation that they could go to bars, which was one of the early stages of feminism.
Yep.
It was a time when white women couldn't leave the house without a chaperone.
Yep. Now we know
why.
The
first place they used to go to when they could leave the house without chaperones was bars. They wanted to drink like the men. They wanted to smoke like the men.
Yep.
They want to do all these manly things because they are men. They're masculine. They're only women biologically and even anatomically, I would say. Not even biologic. They have the anatomy of women, but the spirit and the asili of a man.
Yes.
They have a patriarchal consciousness. Okay, so this is what we have to understand about white women. Feminism has nothing to do with femininity.
No.
It's about the liberation from the standards of femininity.
The standards of an African
womanhood.
They can't compete with that.
They couldn't match that, so they said, okay, let's abandon it and let's just be our natural white selves. Okay,
our natural recessive selves.
So next, so feminism is liberation from femininity and embrace of masculinity. Next, transgenderism is the logical endpoint of feminism. Now, so body modification follows the modification of psychology.
Right.
And I think even when you look at the acronym, the LGBT Q. We're not going to include the Q, but because it used to be just LGBT.
Right.
That acronym, I think, perfectly traces the evolution of sexual dysfunction amongst white people. Meaning, remember, at the beginning, we said it was the Lilith character. It was the succubus who first planted that gene of sexual deviancy and her inability to to procreate, in her inability to have that feminine essence, her fall from grace, which is the fall from her femininity. So as the lesbian, she is at the root, the mother begins this culture of dysfunction. Remember, it's always the mother first, so it's the lesbianism first. Now, as a response to the lesbianism, the white man engages in homosexuality. As what? As revenge against his neglectful mother. He has no reverence for the mother because he wasn't raised by a mother. He was raised by wolves. And the wolves didn't have any feminine vitality either. So that's why in Greece and Rome, what do you see?
Suckling from dogs.
A culture of homosexuality run rampant. So first you have lesbianism, then you have gay. Next you have bisexuality. Now what is bisexuality? Bisexuality is these black people who are straight but who can't seem to condemn homosexuality.
Right.
Bisexuality is the propaganda campaign that's convincing us that sexuality isn't a culturally defined system, but it's fluid. Meaning you can be gay and straight at the same time, that you can have sex with men and women and there's no sign of mental illness. That whole bisexuality construct, this was designed to what? Get the people who aren't participating in the lesbianism or the homosexuality to accept the culture of lesbianism and bisexuality.
Expand the cult.
Now that they've reached critical mass, meaning now that they've accomplished everything that they wanted to accomplish with converting all the so-called straight people to adopt and embrace the lesbian and gay culture, now we get to transgenderism, where you add a biological expression of that spiritual essence.
And that's the stage we're in today.
That's the final stage. Meaning if I can get you to castrate yourself, if I can get you to, cut off your breast, if I can get you to deplete your uterus to the point that you can't bear children, then we have won. Now the desolate environment is complete. Now Lilith can rest. Okay, Lilith can rest. And remember, this is a point in Isaiah. It's a book in the Bible named Isaiah in Scripture. And it says, once you create a place of desolation, this is where Lilith will find rest. Meaning Lilith will never sleep until she feels that our capacity to reproduce our procreative potential is completely annihilated. And that's what transgenderism represents. It represents the complete annihilation of your procreative power. Because remember, the lesbian and the gay can still procreate. But once you get rid of your reproductive organs, there is no procreation.
Castration. And it was a point in one of the articles that we read about this, their own white people, they said that Lilith encourages castration in the men that she sleeps with. After she sleeps with them, the men are so drained and they're so depressed and they feel so destitute that they want to castrate themselves. And this is what transgenderism is. It's the castration that white people have been doing to us, by the way. They've been castrating black men. They've been sterilizing black women. This is a part of their asili. We talk about the asili is the natural element of white people.
The cultural DNA.
The cultural DNA of them is destruction. And because the Lilith energy is now more rampant than it has ever been, now we have that transgender phase, which is now the castration, right? Because like he said, the lesbian, then you first the mother starts the lesbian, then you have the gay, the man, then you have both, the bisexual, and then now it's like, are you gonna cut off your genitals?
Yes, and we should remember there was a time in history where the only time a black man would be castrated is if a lynch mob captured him and castrated him. Now you have black men castrating themselves.
Crazy.
They're doing the work of the lynch mob. You see, so this is what we have to understand. If this was something done by lynch mobs to African men, how could it possibly be to our benefit today? It can't be.
It can't be.
So next, we want to figure out, why do white women propagandize African women into adopting their ways? They do this because they want to create a buffer zone between them and judgment. Because remember, African people, we believe in divine justice, meaning evil cannot reign forever. At some point, the scales are going to balance themselves out and evil is going to be put back in its place. White women understand this. As demonic and depraved as they are, they still understand the laws of nature. Because of this, their method is, how can I recruit as many African women as possible so that when divine judgment comes, I won't be the only one being punished. That I could probably forego or delay the punishment that I deserve because now I've recruited the Creator's children to practice the same deviancy that I practice. So understand, anytime you see black people, man or woman, following in the footsteps of Lilith, they're creating a buffer zone between Lilith and the punishment that they rightfully deserve.
And they've literally co-opted so many of our women at this point. It's so many black women who think that there's power in being oversexed. There's power in this Lilith energy and all of these negative aspects. And because of that, this is why the society is just, it's not livable at this point. Like, it's not livable. Anybody that is pro-life should not still be there.
And on a world stage, you can even sense the kind of desperation of this Lilith energy in the campaign to convert Africans on the continent to homosexuality. Fortunately, we have leaders like Yoweri Museveni who are brave enough to stand and say, this is not part of our culture. We reject this. We reject it out of hand, meaning we don't even entertain it as serious. So this is, we should follow in the footsteps of Museveni, who is a champion of his culture and saying, African people, this is not the tradition from which we come. And if we were to adopt this, it would mean our genetic death. Okay? So
now we're going to talk about how the white woman relates to nature. So we talked about how she relates sexually. We talked about how she relates socially. Let's now talk about how she relates to nature. So the white man rapes nature on behalf of the white woman. Jewels in the crown. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so what does jewels in the crown mean? Notice whenever you see depictions of white queens, what's characteristic about their appearance? They're bejeweled, meaning if you look at their crowns, they have rubies and diamonds and sapphires and emeralds. And they have all these like corsets and these necklaces and earrings. Where did these diamonds come from? These diamonds came from the African earth. The African earth that was raped by white men. But the white man was raping the African earth on behalf of the white woman. Again, this fits that narcissistic mother model. The white man is telling the white woman, this is how much I love you, mother. I'm going to rape the African earth. and then I'm going to dig deep and mine from the African earth the most precious stones possible, stones that Africans actually valued and used for spiritual and ceremonial purpose. We're going to mine those stones from the earth, and then I love you, narcissistic mother, so much that I'm going to put it into your crown. I love you, narcissistic mother, so much that I'm going to invade African nations like the Congo, and I'm going to mine the minerals from the Congo so we can build computers for you, white mother. You see, so all of this environmental ecocide, as they call it, this environmental violence that you see that the white man is pouring upon the earth, he's doing this to create more jewels for the crown of Lilith, to put in the crown of his white decrepit mother. Okay, so that's what we have to understand. All of the violence we see, this is on behalf of the mother,
white woman, right? And the white man is just the one who has the body mass to carry it out. But we also have to communicate as well with Lilith, because she doesn't have femininity, right? We've said that multiple times. She doesn't have femininity, but you need the balance between femininity and masculinity in order to relate to nature, because you see masculinity and you see femininity within nature. So you have to have an element of femininity to relate to nature, and because she doesn't have that, she can't relate to nature. So she uses the white man to destroy the nature that she can't relate to. Go ahead.
It's similar to the story, if you know the story of Lilith. When Lilith first laid eyes on Eve, she was overwhelmed with jealousy because what she saw in Eve, she saw something she didn't have. She saw that Eve could be a partner to Adam. She didn't know how to be a partner to Adam, and that devastated her. In the same way, Lilith felt this feeling of insecurity when she saw Eve. White women today feel that same level of insecurity when they look at the abundance of nature, when they see fruits coming from the earth, when they see trees coming from the earth, when they see animals living, peaceably and in harmony in an ecology that's balanced. This reminds the white woman of everything she is not. And because it reminds her of everything she is not, she deputizes the white man to torture the earth. Get the earth. Get Eve. Get that earth that's trying to be vital while I have no vitality. Get the earth that can produce multiple children, but I can't produce more than two. You see? Meaning the fertile earth the
earth is more fertile than the white woman.
The earth is more fertile than the white woman. So all of this fertility, it arouses within the white woman this sense of inadequacy. And because it arouses this inadequacy, she unleashes the white man to put the earth back into its place.
Right.
Which is what she feels is under her. To turn the earth desolate.
Turn
the earth desolate so she can have a place of rest. So that, again, all of this scripture is telling you about the psychology of the white woman.
Right. And if you looked at the movie Oppenheimer, I know a lot of black people didn't watch it, but if you watch that movie, as the movie progressed, the white woman was falling more. She cared about the white man. The closer he got to creating the nuclear weapon, the more she showed compassion for him. The more she respected him because he was destroying the earth that she cannot relate to. So the white woman hates just because we don't see her out in these streets mining and extracting, and we don't see her on the African ground doing the horrendous atrocities that white men are doing, we cannot ignore the fact that she's the mind and the psychological element behind why white men are doing it in the first place.
Yes, you must understand that violence against nature is a love language for white men and women. Meaning one of the things that, remember I said the ritualized fighting, it ends with what? The truce. And then they combine their violent energies and direct it outward. They direct that violent energy not only towards African people, but the African earth and anything else that is a reflection of nature. So again, they show their love for one another, for a lack of a better word. They show their love for one another in their mutual investment in the destruction of the earth, in their mutual investment in the destruction of African people. So that's something we have to understand. And the recessive nature of the white woman makes abundant environments her natural enemy. This is the parasite host dynamic. She's the parasite, and she's taking, like a parasite, all of the wealth from the earth so that she can put it in her crown for vanity's sake.
Vanity. Or terms like diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Yes.
First off, they said the word girl because I thought she was a woman. What are you talking about? And then secondly, she's talking about diamonds from Africa are a girl's best friend. Meaning the white man, look, he loves me because he rapes the earth for me. He mines the earth for me. He steals resources from other people to give them to me. Right? So this is why we have to look deep into these terms and the way that white people relate, and you can see the relationship with nature through the white man. You can look at the white woman and get a glimpse of what's really happening.
And I would even argue that how the men or how a people relate to nature, they're telling you their conception of the woman. Meaning, because African people as a whole, men and women, because we relate to nature in a harmonious, balanced way, this shows we have a reverence for feminine things. We have a reverence for Asaseya, which means Mother Earth. We have a reverence for women. But if you relate to the earth in a violent, brutal way, meaning you're mining it, you're having oil spills, you're polluting the air, you're polluting the water, you're creating acid rain and artificial weather. These are all indicators that their relationship with the feminine self is dysfunctional. They don't have a relationship with the feminine self.
No.
And the origin of this dysfunctional relationship with femininity is Lilith, the white woman.
And also you can look at too how poaching. You'll see white men and white women come to Africa specifically to kill rhinos and elephants and giraffes. And there's pictures of white women with the heart of a giraffe in her hand, and she's smiling. You see, so this is this sadistic nature, this need to subdue the earth, subdue anything that's natural, is a natural trait of white women.
So what is environmentalism? The white tree huggers, the white women who like granola bars,
overcompensation,
and hiking and tote bags.
I love being in nature.
Tote bags made of bamboo. What about those white women? So environmentalism is among white women is a form of deception that they think will save them from their punishment for their role in destroying the earth. And we must understand that this will not save them.
No, it will not.
Because remember, environmentalism is an individual response to a collective crime. Meaning the crimes against the earth wasn't committed by individual white people. This was committed by entire nations of white people. Meaning if the white woman were serious about the crimes that her people carried out against the earth, she would be more intentional about raising nations that don't have the desire to destroy the earth. But as we've seen over history, the destruction against the earth is accelerating and ramping itself up generation after generation. And that's because the white woman has no problem with the destruction of the earth. In fact, she is highly in favor of destroying the earth, because this is an expression of the Lilith energy that her oldest ancestor had. Okay, so that's what we have to understand. Environmentalism is a smokescreen to distract us from the fact that the white woman is the biggest culprit when it comes to the destruction of the earth. She is the culprit. All right, so lastly, because the white woman lacks femininity, she has to denaturalize, or we would say defeminize, nature to rest. And any species incapable of nourishing their own children cannot possibly honor the natural environment, because sustaining offspring is the first rule in all natural organisms, meaning self-preservation. Meaning when you look at the white society, when you look at their family structure, the so-called nuclear family, when you look at their lack of extended motherhood, when you look at the fact that they don't have any real system of postpartum care, this is all indicative of the fact that they are incapable of relating to nature in a harmonious way.
It's not in them.
Okay, and because I'm gonna measure your ability to sustain nature life based on how you treat your children, because that's every animal does it. Animals don't really have a responsibility to the external environment. They have a responsibility to their children first, and then based on that relationship with their children, that then will radiate out into how they relate to everything else, because they see that as dependent upon how they treat their children. So this lack of interconnectedness you see in white women, this inability to understand the men that they're raising are tyrants, their inability to see that's a sign that they're completely disconnected from nature, and they are the descendants of Lilith. Okay?
Ashe. So now we're going to talk about how the white woman feminizes the black man and the black woman. So she feminizes the black man and she masculinizes the black woman. So we talked about how she relates to nature. We talked about how she relates socially and how she relates within the home with her family. Now we want to talk about how does the white woman relate to us as black women and to black men.
So first, she feminizes the black man by blocking his access to the black woman, who activates his masculinity. So remember, when you're talking about the relationship between African men and women, this is a relationship of complementarity, meaning men don't actualize their masculine potential to its full until they come into contact with the African woman, and vice versa. women don't actualize their feminine potential to the full until they come into contact with the protector in the form of the African man.
Right.
So what the white woman does is she drives a wedge between the African man and woman. And because the black man can no longer access the black woman, and sometimes this lack of access looks like the black woman refashioning herself in the form of a white woman. You see, meaning the black man, he has to have a relationship not just with the physical black woman, but her essence. Meaning he has to have a relationship with that African woman in her essence.
You mean Beyonce doesn't count?
No, Beyonce don't count. Okay. So anytime you have this barrier, whether that barrier is figurative in the form of the black woman imitating the white woman, or is literal in the form of the white woman standing between the black man and the black woman, this is going to effeminize the black man, because anytime he's not going to have access to his masculinity, what he's going to do, he's going to revert to femininity. He's going to revert to homosexuality. He's going to revert to pedophilia,
bestiality,
any type of deviancy that will castrate him. You know, any type of deviancy that will empty out or cause him to relinquish his procreative potential. He's going to do that because subconsciously he knows, if I have a relationship with this Lilith, I can't be the kind of potent African man that I was created to be.
Because she's warring against me.
Because she's warring against me. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to understand. Black men who get with white women, they're being effeminized. Okay, and next, Lilith, this is how she relates to black women. You want to talk about that?
So the way that Lilith relates to us as black women is she masculinizes us, right? She makes us feel like the man is useless. We don't need his presence. There's no value in his presence. And so what she does is she oversexes us, right? So she tells us that our power is in our sexuality. Our power is in our ability to seduce the man, right? Not to procreate with him and give him children and raise his children and pour into those children. That's not where your power is when you're dealing with the Lilith. The Lilith only knows seduction. She only knows seduction. And so what she does is, by in being in proximity to in us as black women, being in proximity to her as a white woman, she is subconsciously, she don't even have to say it. This is the thing. None of this stuff is happening overtly. This is all subconscious. She's subconsciously instilling in us this desire to focus on our sexual abilities as women, and that is what that masculinizes us.
Yes, it's basically, she uses seduction as a substitute for curation.
Yes.
Because she doesn't know how to curate, she can only seduce.
She only knows how to seduce the man.
Which means, again, impair his judgment so that he can't discern whether his power is being enhanced or depleted.
But I need my man to be at his highest space, to be a protector, to be the curator, to be the leader. So I can't afford for his mental to be impaired. I can't afford for him to be so oversexed that he can't be a protector and he can't be a guide. What's happening is, in these relationships, because the women are so oversexed, they're making their men useless. The woman is creating a useless man, because the white man is useless to the white woman and vice versa. And so now we picked up this Lilith energy. Now we're making our men useless to us, and we're useless to them. And that's why all this homosexuality is running rampant. It's because we become useless to one another. But as black African people, we need each other.
Yes.
We have that complementary relationship. And so what the white woman does is she whispers into the black woman's ear subconsciously, you don't need him. He's a tyrant. He's oppressing you. He's a cheater. He doesn't like you. He's a deadbeat father. All of these narratives are being spoken subconsciously to the black woman, and she hears it. And over time, at first she may reject it. At first she may be like, "Nah, I like black men. Nah, it's cool. We gonna work this out." But over time, she starts to meditate, and she's like, "Dang, he kind of is oppressing me. Dang, he is kind of a dead. I don't like him. I don't like it." Now these nuances, these ideas start sprouting up, and now we have this masculine energy. The more we meditate on what the man is not doing instead of what we aren't doing or what we should be doing, we become more masculine. And the more masculine we become, the more feminine the man becomes, and the more we start to separate from each other instead of gravitating towards each other.
Yes, and another way of putting this is, whenever you see a kind of dysfunction in a man, this is an indicator of discord in the culture of motherhood. Meaning, if you're a woman, you're the cultural administrator. Meaning, if you're managing big entity with a lot of moving parts, and one part starts misfunctioning, you want to look at it holistically. You don't want to just say, oh, it's this man. You want to say, no, who raised this man?
Who raised this man?
Who raised the mother of this man?
Where's your mom?
What happened to the grandmother of this man? How did this genetically get to where it is today?
Yes.
What type, am I living in an environment where I have all the components of familyhood so that I can look at this from the proper perspective? Do we have elders in our community?
Nope.
Are children centered in our community? These are all questions that cultural administrators ask. You see, but if you've been underskilled or underdeveloped to disown your culturally administrative role, what you're going to do is you're going to do the easy target.
Yep.
Let's attack the man who is equally in the same predicament of oppression as me. Instead of saying, how can we combine our energies to destroy the white woman? How can we combine our energies to destroy the white man? How can we do that to destroy the white child? That's what we have to start asking.
A very lazy approach, because the white woman is lazy. This is why she needed the black woman in the home to help raise and manage her home when we were in slavery. The mammy in the home. The white woman is lazy naturally. So she also is lazy when it comes to working towards relationships. She doesn't have the patience and the ability to sit and work through issues. She's like, I'll just get a divorce before I sit here and try to work this out with you. We not like that though. See, so all of this impatience, all of this entitlement, all of this masculinity that they are instilling in us as black women is making it so that our men are now looking like, dang, I'd just rather be gay than deal with this. You see? And this is exactly what Lilith wants. She wants the women to be with lesbians, and she wants the men to be gay.
Yes.
That's the ideal situation, because remember, she's anti-procreation. But that's why she steals the seed, and that's why she kills the children. So the ideal situation for Lilith is gay men and lesbian women.
Yes.
That's the ideal situation.
James Baldwin and Audre Lorde. All right, so the last point is the end goal of this masculinization and feminization is to prevent complementarity between black men and women. And that's what we said from the outset. Destroy that balanced dynamic so that the man and the woman can't actualize their higher self. You know, that's the end goal. And also, lastly, we want to say that the white woman is a psychological model for all homosexual black men. And this is something that our teacher, Walimu Baruti, says, meaning the black man who's homosexual, he feigns fragility, he feigns helplessness, he feigns like he's a damsel so that he can get favor from the white man. This is the black man who doesn't want to fight the white man, but he wants to submit to the white man, because the white woman taught him to submit to the white man. Okay? So this is what we have to understand. When we're looking at the homosexual black man, he's getting his cultural cues from the white women, okay? Not from the black woman, from white women.
Right.
And even if it's from black women, it's from black women who got their cues from white women.
Who act like white women.
So it's either direct or indirect. There's a white woman in the equation whenever we're talking about homosexuality.
Yes. And the crazy part now is the black women are perpetuating Lilith energy better than Lilith.
Yes.
These black women out here are literally perfected Lilith energy on a way and a scale that the white woman hasn't even done, at least overtly. Like the stuff that we're seeing black women do today and engage in today is blasphemous, and it's all Lilith energy. So the white women don't even have to do nothing now. At this point, it's like they already got it. They taking the rope from here.
Yes.
So this is why it's very imperative for us as black women to separate ourselves from white women. And this leads us into our call to action. We must purge all white women from our social circles and not allow them anywhere near our families, anywhere near our men, anywhere near our children, because their energy, whether we're engaging with them in a kind, nice way or whatever, their energy, this is the thing, the white woman doesn't have to say any of the things that we just said. She doesn't have to say anything to do this. Her energy alone is going to manufacture all of these traits that we just said. So that's why it's so imperative that she is not allowed in our spaces. The white man as well, but we're specifically talking about white women in this video. So the white woman, she needs to be purged from our spaces, because whenever she enters a space with black people, she's not doing that so happenstance. It's not like, dang it, I just end up at this club again with all these black people. No, she's there to perpetuate Lilith energy and to make sure that the people in her society, meaning black men and black women, are also perpetuating that Lilith energy. She's there to check up on her on her merchandise. She's checking up and making sure, okay, cool, they got it. And she's also there to lure our men and to lure our women, right?
Think Get Out.
Yes, think Get Out.
Yeah.
Get Out is a perfect example.
Yeah, because remember, the character, the main woman character in Get Out, the white woman character, she wasn't just preying on men, she was preying on women as well.
Yep.
You see, so this isn't even about just white women preying on black men. White women preys on the black village, meaning the black men,
everybody,
women, and
the
children.
Yes.
And the elders and the ancestors, if she could.
Yes.
If she could access our ancestors, she would prey on them as well.
too. Absolutely.
So this is just about us being vigilant and being centered in our Africanness so that we know who our enemies are and how to deal with them.
Absolutely.
And our last call to action is we invite everyone who is which we'll be having on September the 17th. That's next month. And the class is called Yorugu, Decoding the Vile Nature of the White Race. And in that class, we'll be talking a lot about what we talked about here and much more.
Right.
This is a class we did before, but we're doing it again, updated. And we really anticipate, our brothers and sisters contributing to this conversation because we're in a time in history where it's more critical than ever for us to be aware and proactive about how we deal with our enemies.
Yes.
Because if we continue this line of acceptance and assimilation, this is not going to spell survival for us. In fact, it's going to spell our annihilation.
Right.
So you want to just...
So yeah, we just want to invite y'all to RCP. That link is in our bio. Yeah. We have actually done this class about 2 years ago. We did it, but we're going to add more stuff to it. Yeah. And like you said, it's really important that we understand white people, because if everything we just said in this video was something that you never heard, you need to be at this class, because in the class we're going to get even deeper into the psychology and the relations and how these things are affecting our relationships, how they're affecting our children, how they're affecting our health, our mental health. This suicide and this homicide that we're seeing, all of this is a product of being in Samuel and Lilith spaces. Okay.
And Samuel is the spouse of
Samuel. It was the spouse, right? Yeah. I don't think she was married, because with these,
not spouse, but the partner in crime.
The partner in crime, yes, like we said earlier. Yeah. So this is really important, and I know a lot of people are like, this is irrelevant. Why do I need to know about what white people are doing? Well, if you live in their spaces, you need to know, because they're doing it to you, right? All the things that we listed, they're affecting us by proximity. Yes. So we really, I think somebody just asked to request to join, but I don't know who that is, so I don't want to. So we're going to save this live. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining. If you have any questions, if you want any of the sources that we used to
direct message us.
Yeah, direct message us. Yeah. We always have these type of conversations within our DMs, or people are wanting more information, or people are wanting resources. Please feel free to message us and do that, and we will see you in our next video.
Asante.